The morning show right here on the Rising Chance. Let's take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The Petroleum Products Price Regulatory Agency says it can no longer provide a monthly price template for the sale of premium motor spirit, popularly known as petrol. The agency holds that doing so will completely contradict the deregulation policy in the oil and gas industry. Its Executive Secretary Abdulkadir Said said gave a new direction at a press conference. Deregulation is here, staring at us in the face. Price regulatory body saying we cannot any longer provide a price template. Does this mean deregulation has started fully?
It's beginning to look a little messy for me because, yes, the Pppra says we are handsing off pricing, putting a price ban. However, we'll police as regulators, which is good. But we still have the PPMC, who is also like a marketer, but for the government, who imports petrol. And then in that report, if you look further, it also says the reason why we have not seen the true benefits of the subsidy removal is because of the scarcity of forex that the oil marketers are going through. And I recall that this was one of the reasons that the NNPC became the sole importer of the product. So if the independent marketers and the major oil marketers still have to battle with scarcity of forex and the government still has to come in to sort it out for them, what exactly are we doing here?
Well, I think the Pppra is making the right noise because one of the concerns, which I pointed out yesterday morning, is that there is a difference between price fixing, price control, and regulation. And it would be unfortunate to have in a deregulated context an agency of government still fixing prices when in fact it's the NNPC. PPMC is a branch of NNPC. Entertains a monopoly. Well, I think they're responding to public concerns in that regard to now say that the Pppra will just be the regulatory agency, a monitoring agency, to make sure that there are no sharp practices on the part of independent petroleum, on the part of independent petroleum marketers. So what that means, of course, is that they will do their job as their original function. They will discharge their original function as a regulatory agency. But will they do it? Because long before now, we used to have, well, I hope the department is there, a weights and measurements department, part of whose responsibility is to ensure, that there are no sharp practices in terms of weights and measurements, particularly with regard to petrol stations, as an example. And then, of course, we have a consumer protection agency. Yeah, that Consumer Protection Commission sometimes wakes up, sometimes it's playing possum, sometimes it is completely comatose. Now, all of these agencies have a responsibility to ensure that, the consumer is not cheated, either with regard to petrol or other issues. So if the Pppra is defining its function properly, then, of course, that's a good development, and we'll keep an eye on that. But do they have the mechanism? Do they have the structure to effectuate what they are promising Nigerians? That's one leg of it, to the extent in which they are trying to protect the interest of the consumer and prevent fraud. The second leg of it is with regard to a level playing field. If PPMC or NNPC gets forex at a favorable rate, and independent marketers cannot get the same foreign exchange to be able to import, then that's a problem. And the independent marketers have always complained about this. In a deregulated context, that will not be in order. So what steps have they taken? Because it's not enough to just talk and say this is what we're going to do. What assurances can they put on the table so that the independent marketers will now say, okay, with access to forex, there's now a uniform exchange rate that everybody can access. PPMC will not go behind and get PPMC from central bank directly from the NAFEX window, and they as independent markets can only access the parallel market. What are those guarantees? I hope that there will be dialogue along those lines, because for a very long time now, independent marketers have not been importing refined petroleum. They've been, taking off, products from PPMC. And so that's why PPMC can have the confidence to fix prices. And we hope that that will not happen again. The other matter that has not been resolved as part of the responses to what is called the complete removal of fuel subsidy is other Nigerians drawing attention to the fact that even now, petroleum price, the pump price of petrol should not be as high as 151 or 161 or 162 as it were, because price deregulation will mean if prices go up, if the spot price of crude goes up, then of course price will go up at the fuel station. If it goes down, it will go down. There are persons who have provided evidence to show that this is not the situation and this is a form of tax that is being imposed on Nigerians. So I hope PPPRA will also address that question. And one of the persons who has raised that question is former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. And he has tried to mobilize evidence to show that what has been done, in fact, there is an error in it.
And why everyone seems to be quiet on the Petroleum Equalization Fund, which ensures that prices of petrol is sold at the same rate across the country because of the differentials in transport in picking this product. If we still have the Petroleum Equalization Fund, can we truly say we are deregulating? Well, nobody has mentioned anything about the fund.
The Petroleum Equalization Fund will be a kind of subsidy, but if government says it cannot provide subsidy, it will automatically disappear. So let's see what happens beyond now. If anybody is still subsidizing fuel in a part of the country, then of course appropriate questions will be raised. But at this level, we stay with policy as enunciated.
So much. That's all on news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have the trio of Rotus, Michael, and Aaron to give us updates on African global business and COVID-19. Stay with us. Right, welcome back to the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. Our dependable Rotus Odiri is here to give us Africa business update. Over to you, Rotus.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor, and good morning, Adeswa.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes,
good morning, Rotus.
we begin with a press release from the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. They were talking about matters of urgent attention. This is a 15-point press release where they talked about a whole host of issues from agriculture, security, foreign exchange, and they said that these are items that the government must attend to urgently. We also had on the Global Business Reports yesterday the CEO of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, Mr. Laoye Jayola. And again, just for those that don't know, the Nigeria Economic Summit Group is a think tank and they are also a policy advocacy group. So he came on air to talk about these matters. I asked him, why they popped out yesterday with these issues, and he said, he spoke about them. Now, the central bank did respond to these matters of urgent attention, and one of the things that they responded to was this matter of the repeal and reenactment of the Banking and Other Financial Institutions Act for 2020. Now, the NESG, they've raised an alarm that was misinterpreted. They said that the central bank governor, with respect to the repeal and reenactment of the Banking and Other Financial Institutions Act, is set to get immunity. And this was misinterpreted. So this was one of the major points that the central bank responded to, and it's even in our sister publication today's paper. Let's take a look at an excerpt of the existing Banking and Other Financial Institutions Act in section, I believe it's a provision in section 53. It says the existing BOFIA does have a provision in section 53 that reads, neither the federal government nor the bank nor any officer of the government or bank shall be subject to any action, claim, or demand by or liability to any person in respect of anything done or omitted to be done in good faith, in pursuance or in execution of or in connection with the execution or intended execution of any power conferred upon that government, the bank, or such officer by this act. The key thing here is in good faith is when you are acting literally in good faith. This does not provide immunity. So unfortunately, they raised the wrong alarm. You can even go further and look at an excerpt from the Central Bank CBN Act here. If you look at item 2, the bank shall be a body corporate with perpetual succession and a common seal and may sue and be sued in its corporate name. So if you take a look at, if you try to marry what's in the act with what's in, or what they're alleging with what is in the act for the CBN, it doesn't tally. So that was something in particular that the central bank wanted to be sure to address, in that there is no such item that calls for the immunity of the CBN governor, and that's you know, if you're talking about immunity, you're talking about what existing governors of states or the president already has. That's not the case here. So it was very important for them to stamp that out and be very clear that that's not the case. So we also move on now to the South Africa and their GDP for Q2 2020 contracted by on an annualized basis 51%. If you look at this time 2019, in the period April through June, a 17% contraction. Why? Of course, we talked about this, the severe lockdown in Q2, ESCOM being a major drag on the economy, consumer confidence being really low, construction suffered a major drop, manufacturing suffered a major drop. You've got unemployment that is about, what, north of 30% in South Africa. So the second quarter was a reflection of what the government went through. Also, not the government, the people as well. Also, there's still a ban on alcohol sales in South Africa because they want to reduce the amount of gatherings of people. Restaurateurs in South Africa, some of them, alcohol sales amount to about 40 to 50% of their sales. So that restriction has been a major drag on what they're being able to sell. So it's something that it's one of the largest contractions we've seen so far with respect to how South Africa is coping. Although what's being said is that for the third quarter, it looks like we're going to see a rebound. But then the rebound has to be put in context within where are they coming from, which was a very, very deep hole. Lastly, you folks, you guys just talked about the Pppra and the full deregulation of the downstream sector. Anyone who wants to go to this website, globalpetrolprices.com, the point I'm making here is that the foreign exchange components of marketers being allowed to set whatever prices they can has to be put into view. So if you look here, Nigeria is at 39 cents, this is in US dollars, 39 cents a litre. If you multiply that by 408 naira per dollar, you get the 159 naira per litre that is being sold now at the price that's just been moved. So, and we're still one of the lowest, we still have one of the lowest fuel prices in the world, right? So we're top 12 there. So again, if you look at Ivory Coast, if you look at Ghana, if you look at other nations, they are much, I think Ivory Coast is about $1.08. So that's almost 800 naira per litre. So it will be interesting to see if we actually have full deregulation of the downstream sector, what prices fuel will actually go at if marketers are allowed to go and source for foreign exchange to be able to bring the refined petrol in, and what the prices will be. As you've already talked about, the Pppra said they're no longer doing price bans. They will now just make sure that prices are, the consumers, the end users are not price gouged. But the thing again, if you times up 39 cents times 408, you'll get 159. So that's something to look at going down the road.
Rotus, I'll try to be very quick. You've raised three very important subjects. I think one, the comparison of pump price of fuel in Nigeria with what obtains in other countries is entirely misplaced. And you know, of course, that many commentators on this have pointed out, the areas of emotion. They think that line of analysis is dubious and unacceptable, because if you compare pump price, also compare GDP, compare minimum wage, compare other conditions in those countries, and whether or not in those countries the refineries work, and the quality of leadership that you also have in those countries. Second, the controversy between the Economic Summit Group and the Central Bank. Well, I think that the Central Bank of Nigeria should not behave as if it is above scrutiny, because that is what the tone of that press release by Isaac Okoroafor indicated. I don't know what was going through Isaac Okoroafor's mind. when he drafted that response, that rebuttal. Specific issues were raised. Matters of urgent attention, as the NESG puts it. The NESG is a policy think tank. Yes, you may say it's a collection of bourgeois, and all of that, but they also have a right as a policy body to make interventions and to raise questions. But the tone of the response from the CBN was a bit aggressive, harsh, completely off color. I don't think that the CBN should sound like that again, because it's not a body that is above scrutiny. On the specific issues raised, one part of the response by the CBN interested me. They were saying, yes, interest rates have been reduced. It is not price fixing, as the NESG pointed out, and that in any case, in other parts of the world, there are negative interest rates. So they're saying that, okay, we now pay banks because of existing circumstances to keep our money for us. So why should anybody save? Take Australia, take Thailand. We've been told that, look, savings have gone up, and that is in a way helping the economy. But here, we're being told, oh, you have to pay the bank to help you keep your money. And then all that talk about malicious intent, a group of bourgeois, all of that, a limited thing, ignorance, and all. I don't think that fits into the framework and the kind of quality that we expect from the Central Bank of Nigeria. The last point you raised is about South Africa. Many Nigerians are saying now that, okay, South Africa economy has contracted by 51%, but Nigeria is talking about 6.1%, and that perhaps the National Bureau of Statistics is not giving us the right figures. Well, that may not follow the facts, because what happens is that South Africa shut down. They had a lockdown for about 4 to 5 months. They shut down restaurants. They shut down everything. In Nigeria here, we only shut down originally just 3 states. Yeah. Ogun, Lagos, and Kano, and the FCT. So the outcome is likely to be different. So I don't think that the comparison is quite exact.
All right, I would have liked to compare Nigeria and Venezuela, Dr. Amati, but we can't do that now. We have to.
No, Venezuela is a terrible case.
It's a terrible case.
And we hope Nigeria will not become Venezuela.
Venezuela has lost 7 kg in weight, but we'll have to go now. All right, moving on to business update with Michael. Michael, how are you doing?
Good, fine, thank you. I'm going to start off with Asia, and Asian stock markets are all lower, but they didn't follow that big Wall Street sell-off yesterday, tick for tick, if you like. They suggest some resilience, as far as I'm concerned, in the Asian markets, despite the regional markets being in the red today. So it's just minor. It's not a major thing. Nikkei down about 1.5%, Kospi down about 1%, Shanghai Composite down about 1.5%, Hang Seng down about 1.7%, and China inflation shows an easing of pressures overnight, year-on-year easing from 2.7 to 2.4. So there's a sort of Goldilocks economy there, really. It is showing signs of inflation, which is good in a sense, shows there's growth there, but not too much. Here's an interesting one for you, and I think this has a direct correlation with your own economy in Africa, in Nigeria, and also Africa as well. China's Bureau of Statistics said country's food prices, get this, rose 11.2%. Right, it's a lot, isn't it? In August, on the back of high pork prices, that's the most popular meat in China, which is about and there's an African swine fever which has actually wiped out a lot of China's hog herds. Pork prices rose 52%. From this time last year. There's no pressing food shortage there, but the farms have obviously been roiled, really, by the coronavirus outbreak yesterday. So therefore, let's do a bit of a recap as far as the United States is concerned. First day of trading after their public holiday, and basically the US market set the tone for what actually happened. Traders left off where things happened, left off on Friday, really. Index futures pushed lower. A continuing fear surrounding the US tech sector was the main story yesterday. It'll be the focus of the trading sessions today as well. Underlying it, of course, relations between the US and China deteriorating. President Trump talked about decoupling, as I said yesterday, the US economy from China. However, given that the cost of manufacturing in China is very, very low, it'll be difficult to do that. But, this is an election coming up, so there's a lot of loud talk going on. Mr. Trump also wants US companies to bring jobs back to the US, and he might target those who don't, but still want to sell into the American market. It seems as though, well, I'm certain this is not just seems, it is gaining support ahead of the presidential election. So the relationship between China will get more strained. Selling pressure waned a little as European indices finished off the lows of the session, but it's likely that we will start lower here. Here's one for you, Tesla. Remember we were talking about that, weren't we, about how I felt that it was completely overvalued, and certainly its stock fell 21% overnight, and it's got a rival called Nikola that rose 40% just because it had got a tie-up with General Motors. But to give some sort of perspective, Tesla has increased its stock price by 500% since the beginning of the year. So this bit of a meltdown should be taken in context of that. Still a bit of a demolition derby, though, or derby, as they say in the United States. OK, so to the UK then, and this uncertainty about the UK-EU trade situation, Brexit, prospect of UK ending the transition period, altering legislation and so on, and operating on World Trade Organization terms after January. We're going to hear a lot more about this basically as it's going on. It's playing out with very, very little international interest. The only play is sterling. You would expect sterling to have plummeted. It hasn't. It's still within a decent trading range. But as ever, these are undercurrents, and they're including international trade as well. Here's one about COVID-19. I'm sure you're going to hear more about this. The trials of the one being developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University have been paused because of a reported side effect on a patient. No details about it yet. Potentially unexplained illness is how AstraZeneca are putting it this morning, but we'll see about that. So to commodities then, and oil really suffered basically as a falling stock market added to weak sentiments driven by a supply glut as well. Gold prices fell, but still within a relatively healthy range. I mean, you're looking about 1930 basically an ounce, and it's decoupled very, very slightly from the woes of the equity market. And copper, I always talk about copper. It's a good barometer of what's going on as far as economies are concerned, and they fell, both copper and silver both fell yesterday as a result of those weaknesses I've just been talking about. That's your global view.
Well, Michael, let's dwell a little bit more on the controversy over the EU-UK trade talks. The Prime Minister seems to be alone. I mean, other Tory MPs are already protesting. There is the Irish Fury. There is the Northern Ireland Secretary also objecting to this, and so much talk in the UK newspapers today about how the UK insisting on a revision of the agreement will amount to a trust problem within the international community for the United Kingdom, and also amount to a violation of international law. Do you think that this matter would go to the Supreme Court eventually, as it happened last year when the Supreme Court ruled against Prime Minister Johnson for his plans to prorogue Parliament?
Okay, two things. First of all, international law. Whose law is international law? We have always in this country gold-plated every regulation, i.e. we've bowed down to international law. We've bowed down to EU law because we have to. Now I think what the Prime Minister is saying is we don't need to do that anymore. Come on then, what are you going to do about it? I mean, that seems to be the idea at the moment. The Northern Ireland one is always going to be a tricky one, given as it's offshore from the United Kingdom, but linked obviously by land to Ireland, which is still within the EU and will continue to do that. So it's really a question of how you get flexible trade between these countries without expensive barriers, without expensive customs barriers, which have not happened in the past, and that also has a large implication for the UK-Irish agreement, which was settled all those, or at least proposed and agreed all all those years ago by Tony Blair. What's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. I think that these trade negotiations will continue, as I've always said, to a fairly bitter end. They will probably be resolved. I don't think particularly there's any worry about it. If it is the World Trade Organization terms, then that's fine. If we're going to pursue bilateral or unilateral agreements with countries, yeah, fine. All right, that's okay. There's plenty to go for. And remember that countries abroad need us almost as much as we need them. I know the Japan trade talks we've talked about in the past are in a bit of limbo at the moment, but it is still the world's third largest economy. There still will, I suspect, be some sort of accommodation with the United States as well. As I said, I don't think these Brexit things, they're playing big in the newspapers here. Internationally, I don't think they're playing big at all. I think it's just something which needs to be got over, and there'll be a lot of discussion about it. It's what politicians do.
Michael, thank you so much for that. One thing I'll just say is I knew definitely this was going to affect the Good Friday Agreement, and that idea of having a Singapore on terms might not be possible for the UK, but we just need to move off from...
You mean Australia? Australia. The Australian option, you mean?
No, the Singapore on terms option. You know, that they want UK to be like a Singapore on terms. Nah, that's one of the plans. But we'll just move on to Aaron real quickly. Aaron, how you doing? COVID-19 report is not looking good with the vaccines this morning. Unexplained illness. Unexplained illness. What is that?
All right, Rufai, let's actually get it to you. But okay, since we're talking about the vaccines, good morning to you, Adesua.
Good morning, Aaron.
The lady in red, doctor, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yes, and now let's get straight into it. Looking at the vaccines, let's actually start it off from there. And actually, they can help us with my slide to actually explain. Of course, 9 vaccine makers have actually come together and this is quite remarkable that all of them are coming together and pulling their resources together and saying that they signed a joint pledge that they will hold the highest ethical standards and ensure that science will lead, not politics. In their own words, they said that we undersigned the biopharmaceutical companies want to make clear our ongoing commitment to developing and testing potential vaccines for COVID-19 in accordance with high ethical standards and sound scientific principles. Of course, the 9 pharmaceuticals includes AstraZeneca, Moderna, Pfizer, Merck, BioNTech, Novavax, Sanofi, Glasgow, and Johnson & Johnson. Now, the two sides to this is, number one, is that there's already a bias towards vaccines with the way the politics has actually shaded this particular race to get a vaccine out in the US. And people are beginning to maybe look away from it. Polls are showing that people don't want to be part of a vaccine trial, not just even the trial alone. When we actually have a vaccine out, people don't want to get vaccinated. So this is actually good for that they come out to say that regardless of what is happening, regardless of the pressure, they will be going out there and doing the right thing to ensure that when it gets out, certainly things will happen. And that takes us to the second slide. And at the moment, Rufai, you mentioned this. We'll be talking about candidates to the vaccine. In phase 1 right now, we have 24. In phase 2, we've got 14. In phase 3, we've got 9. And in limited approvals, we've got 3. None that has been fully approved right now. Now, the one that was looking very promising, we've spoken about it time and time again, the AstraZeneca's vaccine, the AZ-1222, and what is happening with University of Oxford at the moment has been suspended temporarily because they say that one patient just unexplainably became ill. And it is expected, but an independent body will need to review some of these things. They need to look at the data again, and before they begin phase 3 or continue phase 3 trials, and which is very, very good for them that they're not being rushed into this, that when they've seen something that is out of the ordinary, which is expected when you're trying to get a vaccine up. Normally it takes at least 5 years to get a vaccine, that they're doing this a crash program, or what they're calling Operation Warp Speed in the US. But nevertheless, moving on to if you can still help us with the slide, while that is happening on one side, let's tell you that the BioNTech Pfizer consortium alongside Fosun Pharma are saying that by October there might be an emergency use authorization for their own vaccine, and maybe towards the end of the year we might be having a vaccine out with full authorization which is quite promising. Maybe this is what President Donald Trump is hinging on, because he made a speech yesterday talking about the fact that maybe, or just leading up to the elections, there might be a vaccine out to people. Whether people around the world or whether people in the US will be able to get this vaccine is left to be seen. 1.9 billion has been spent from the US government to this particular consortium to ensure that they actually expedite what is happening out. But the CEOs of these individual companies, the German pharmaceutical BioNTech, Pfizer, have actually come out to say that at the moment they're taking it step by step, but they're very confident with what they are seeing on ground right now, that just maybe in October they might be getting an emergency use authorization and even a full authorization very soon, and maybe before November. Who knows? Let's see what it becomes. But it's still promising, and it's still looking likely. Even Dr. Fauci is saying that it is very likely this can actually happen. Quickly moving on, let's actually also tell you that in the UK, at the moment, later on from today, a lot would actually happen in terms of curbing COVID-19. We know we spoke about the numbers actually taking a massive rise. 8,500 in the last 3 days have actually gone down in the UK in terms of COVID-19 numbers. And the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be speaking today from 10 Downing Street about the restrictions that will go down. We'll be waiting for that to get more clarity on what is expected. But something also very shocking is the amount that is being spent in COVID-19. Here in Nigeria, of course, Governor Nasir El-Rufai, Kaduna State Governor, said 400,000 naira is used to treat one patient. Now, remember back in July, Dr. Abayomi, the the Commissioner of Health here in Lagos State, Professor. Thank you very much for that correction. Professor Abayomi said that it took, for mild and moderate patients, it took like 100,000 naira. For severe patients, it took almost like 1 million to treat them per day. And El-Rufai is saying 400,000 naira per day. Whether it is 100,000, 400,000 or 1 million is still astronomical.
Is it really? Do we have the equipment, to treat? What does it really take to treat a COVID-19 patient that is critical? I think that's the question here. As we all know, this is new to us. So what are those components that are jacking up these prices or that are making it so expensive? But I'd like to talk particularly about AstraZeneca. Yeah. This is one volunteer. Should we be reading too much into this halt of the vaccine trial?
Not at all. It's just completely natural.
No, It's not just about AstraZeneca taking that decision. Many scientists have also raised questions about, the vaccine that they've been working on. And the gold standard, as defined by the World Health Organization, is a safety consideration.
Yes.
That was the same issue that WHO raised when Putin kept putting his hands in the vaccine race, and Russia was rushing, and they said they had the Sputnik 5. Yes, and WHO, asked people to exercise caution because you have to go through a certain process. And we've seen, many countries rushing ahead and saying that by November, by end of October, they will have the vaccine ready. I think AstraZeneca is just reminding all of us they need to be cautious.
Exactly.
Which was what the WHO DG was talking about. And in the US particularly, we've had cases of emergency authorizations, as they call it. So maybe those emergency authorizations will have to be delinked from politics, because in the US there is a political side to it. And the analysis is that, look, President Trump is hoping that he will be able to come up with a vaccine so that at the end of the day, he will go ahead, and it will help him politically. In the UK, fines have been imposed. On this program, was it 2 days ago? We were saying that, look, maybe in Nigeria also, fines should be imposed. In the UK now, you can't have more than a gathering of 6 persons.
Yeah, 6 persons.
Well, although there are exceptions for funerals, for some bubbles and all of that.
Registry is 12.
And then you can, if you pay £100 on the spot, if you repeat the offense, you can pay up to £3,200. Maybe we need to do something like that in Nigeria, where people just don't respect any protocol with COVID-19 and they think that they have a divine immunity.
No, but it must start from the authorities, because the authorities have flouted COVID-19 protocols more in Nigeria than even the citizenry. Not leading by example.
It's very important we start to look into that. Well, I'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Aaron.